Hello again, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and today I'm going to be setting up for a June 2018 in my bullet journal. But before we get into that, I figured we'd just have a quick flip through of May. So as you'll remember from my May monthly plan with me, I started off with this picture of Justin Timberlake to welcome in the new month. This was followed by my monthly log that had both the small calendar layout and also the regular vertical layout, as well as a space for my goals and any events that were coming up. After this we had my habits and steps tracker, which for May also featured a mini mood tracker. My Doodle page, which is only half done at the moment and I do have a fair bit of catching up to do. My incredibly empty gratitude log, which I didn't actually end up using. My 2 lines a day spread. And my social media schedule. After this, we just jump straight into the weekly spreads. To finish up the month, I also started making this packing list. On May 25th, my partner and I successfully purchased our first home. So at the very start of June, we have removalists coming to get all of our things from here to there. As we jump into the time lapse, just a reminder that any of the equipment that I use in today's setup will be linked in the description box below. To start with, I went in with my Faber-Castell Pitt artist pens in the sizes S and F to do any of the black outlining. While my theme for May was minimalism, for June I wanted something a little bit more colourful. So I've decided to go with a pink, kind of dreamlike inspired theme. For the cover page, we have these 2 cloud-like shapes that frame the central circle that welcomes in the month of June. To add the colour to these, I used my Tombow Dual Brush marker in the colour 743 and my Pentel Aquash water brush. The pages of the LT 1917 do hold up quite nicely with the amount of water I used, but I always like to be cautious with these things, so you'll see I am dabbing it with a little bit of tissue paper. I felt this was particularly important to do, seeing as in some places I did have to go over with my brush multiple times to get the desired effect. To add a final touch to the page, I just went in with my Unimal Signo white gel pen to add a little bit of a highlight. Although this doesn't really do very much to the overall aesthetic of the page, I do feel it gives a slight lift to those clouds. With the cover page done, it was then time to get started on my monthly log. For the title of each page in my monthly setup for June, I decided to stick with the pink clouds. Though as you'll see in a bit, I also added some hanging details to make the page a little bit more visually interesting. You will notice on these pages that I did initially go in with a pencil to give myself a rough outline of the things I wanted to draw in. As I really enjoyed and actually used my monthly setup for May, I wanted to do something quite similar for June. So you'll see here I'm drawing out the boxes for the regular calendar layout, and then I go in a bit later to add the vertical setup on the right hand page. I used a Staedtler Tri Plus Fineliner to do any of the pink text, and then my Muji pen in the size 0.38 to do any of the hanging details. For these, I just used a repeating pattern of diamond, moon, heart, star. Although not really necessary, I did want the cloud header on each of my pages to be somewhat similar to all the rest of them. The nice thing about using the same header on each page was that I could kind of trace it from the page that came prior to that one. This was especially helpful for the cloud layout because that took me forever to draw out initially. I found that as I was doing each of those rounded sections of the cloud, they kind of ended up being a little bit lopsided, and I know clouds aren't supposed to have a strict shape, but it was really bothering me. I am super happy with the way they have turned out in the end though. To the top of the right hand page, I lettered a quote from the movie Inception, which says, "You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling." I do know this is technically spelt incorrectly, but I am really proud of how my double F and afraid turned out. I also made sure to add in my usual goals and coming up sections. After this, we get started on my habits and steps trackers. I completely loved my vertical habits and steps trackers for May. Though for June, I know I'm ready to try something a little bit different. As you'll have seen in my video on different habit tracker styles, where I showed you 5 different styles that are commonly used, one of these was a square habit tracker. I haven't actually used this in my bullet journal before, so I thought it might be really cool to try this out for June. As you can see here, I've ruled up a square that has sides 24 squares across, and I'm just ruling lines that intersect through the middle of this square. This gives me 32 triangular sections, so 30 for each day of the month, and then an additional 2 to put in some kind of an identifier to show what that tracker is actually for. For my steps tracker, I'm going to number these, whereas for my habits tracker, I'm going to combine those 2 triangular sections to write in each of my habits. After ruling out all of the sections, I then went in and added smaller concentric squares inside of the original one. For my steps tracker, each of those concentric squares makes what you could essentially call a path that represents 1,000 steps. So the square that's closest to the center, or the smallest square, represents 1,000 steps for each day. The next one, that one's inside of, represents 2,000. The one that's bigger than that represents 3,000, and so on and so forth. In my tracker, I've given myself enough space for 10,000 steps, and then an additional square to say any amount over that for each day. And the last or the largest square is there so I can write in each day number. I'm really excited to start using this tracker and seeing how it looks when it starts to be filled in. At this stage, the way I'm intending on marking that off is just colouring in each box with a Tombow dual brush marker if I reach that amount of steps. Again, I used my Muji pen to add the detailing to the top of the header. When drawing in the hanging beads and streamers, I tried to make it look like there was one behind the other, so anytime they intersected, one would go through solid, whereas the other one would have a gap. Given my washi tape borders that I like to put on the edges of each of my pages, ruling lines on left-hand side pages in my bullet journal is actually becoming really difficult. So you'll see here I just used a book behind the page that I'm currently working on so that I didn't have to worry about accidentally slipping while I was doing ruled lines closer to the edge of that page. You'll see here also that every so often I go in and add some small guide points using pencil. This was just to make sure I was actually ruling lines where they were supposed to go. Although there is technically enough space on my habit tracker to fill in up to 12 habits, I know that recently I haven't been that inspired to actually go and fill them in. Adding on top of that we're going to be moving house soon, which is going to be really stressful, I don't want to put too much pressure on myself to have to track too many things. So for this one, I only added in every second concentric square, and I also blocked off the middlemost sections. This gives me space to track up to 5 habits this coming month. After this, it's time to draw up my social media scheduler. For the scheduling of my Instagram posts and posting to my Facebook groups, I just have a regular vertical layout, similar to my monthly log. On the right hand side, I also have a space to schedule my YouTube videos, and then a section to keep track of my growth. For any pink text, I again used my Staedtler Tri-Plus Fineliner. Since I've started doing this social media scheduler, I have found it so much easier to know in advance the kind of content that I want to put out for you guys. This also means that, especially for Instagram, I can take a lot of my photos in advance when I do actually have good lighting. Although I don't fill in this spread on camera, the way I schedule my social media posts typically is by brainstorming the content ideas I have and then writing them down on days I feel that they would actually be relevant. So for instance, on the first day of every month on Instagram, I like to post a picture of my cover page for the month. On Sundays, I typically like to post a picture that's of my full weekly spread all filled out for the week, whereas on Monday or Tuesday, I like to post a picture of my before the pen look for each of my spreads. If you'd like a video with a little bit more detail as to how I go about scheduling my social media posts, just let me know in the comment section below. If you were wondering about the pieces of paper that I'm slotting in between each spread, this is because something that I've noticed with the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pens is that you get a small amount of transfer if you apply too much pressure on the other side of the page, kind of directly after you've just used it. After this, we have a double spread for my 2 lines a day page. I super enjoyed bringing this spread back for May, and I'm really looking forward to doing it again in June. A small change I'm making for next month, however, is that I'm also going to be including my mood for the day on this spread, rather than having it as part of my habit tracker. So as you'll see here, I'm drawing out 30 double boxes. One of those boxes is for the number of the day, while the other one is going to be for my mood. I'm not too sure at this stage what moods I will be tracking, but I'm going to include that at the top of the right-hand page. If it wasn't already obvious, I got major inspiration for this spread style from Planning with Kay. She's another awesome planner-related YouTuber, and there's a link to her channel in the description box below. Last but not least, we have a spread for my Doodle challenge. May was the second official month of the JC Doodle challenge on Instagram, and it was so awesome to see everybody who got involved and what they came up with for each of the prompts. I haven't made a prompt list for June yet, but I promise you it is coming soon. If you had any ideas for themes you'd like to see for the Doodle challenge, please do drop them in the comments section below. After allowing all my ink to dry, I then went back in and added some colour. I used the same pink Stettler Tri-Plus fineliner and a gold Uniball Signo gel pen to add some colour to each of the little hanging motifs. I also used the gold pen to colour in the hanging beads. I then went in with my Pentel Aquash water brush and the same Tombow dual brush marker to add colour to the cloud header. Although I've only shown this to you on my Doodle spread, I did go back and do this for every other page that I set up. Alrighty, so that's where we're going to leave it for today. So we have my June splash page, followed by my monthly log. Again, I went for the small calendar on one side and then the vertical layout on the other. After this, we have my habit tracker and steps tracker, my social media schedule, my 2 lines a day page, and my daily doodles page. Thank you for watching. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you had any thoughts, comments or feels, please do leave them in the comments section below. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel to see the videos I release every Thursday and Sunday. And until next time,